Welcome to Organizing with Ease, where we simplify and organize our lives for the better. I'm Deanna Mall, your host, here to guide you towards a more organized and enriching life. Together, let's explore practical strategies, inspiring stories, and expert advice to simplify every aspect of our lives. Are you ready to embark on this journey with ease? Let's start.
Welcome to Organizing with Ease. We're delighted to have you with us this week. Whether you're a longtime listener or tuning in for the first time, we're excited to share this episode with you. Today, we have a special guest joining us, Kasey D'Amato. Kasey is an accomplished business advisor and executive life coach with 20 years of experience as a high-achieving professional across multiple industries. She began her career in pharmaceutical sales, later launching an aesthetic division of dermatology practice as a board-certified dermatology PA. Kasey went on to found a global skincare brand and then launch and expand her online coaching and consulting business, and later divide into two, not one, but two independent companies. Simultaneously, she developed a multi-seven-figure real estate portfolio across the US while maintaining a very happy marriage and traveling the world with her husband. Despite major setbacks with her own emotional health and significant business challenges at times, Kasey has developed a deep understanding of what it takes to build a business, make strategic and difficult decisions, build effective teams both at work and at home, plan and exit, and achieve ultimate success, balance, and fulfillment. Welcome, Kasey.
Hi,
Kasey,
thanks for having me, Diana.
no, you're very, very welcome. So now you have had such a diverse and an impressive career spanning such multiple industries. What initially inspired you to venture into so many different fields? And how did you manage that and navigate it so successfully during each transition?
Oh, that's a great question. I started like you were telling the story. I started in sales. Those were back in my early days, just postgraduate from college, and that's when I first learning a little bit about business. And medicine and helping people has always been passionate of mine, servicing people. So going into medicine became a sort of natural progression for me to help people. And I sort of put the business hat on hold during that time of my life. And after I
Okay.
started practicing for some years, I became involved in the management of the practice where I was working. And that sparked my interest for business again. Because not only could I service my patients, and I was as practicing as a dermatology PA in Los Angeles and Santa Monica, California, I could service my patients and also start to learn about the business and service not only the staff, but my colleagues, and continue to grow and expand. And I think that what attracts me to business is the opportunity to grow. As clinicians in medicine, where I first started, we hit a certain threshold in our careers where we become an expert in our specialty, and that is amazingly rewarding to help others. But then there becomes a point of, well, what next? What could we grow beyond this point? And that's where I think business attracts me. And, eventually I've shifted now 100% my focus to business and away from medicine, because I like that progression of growth, of constantly growing something to the next level in the business sense. And as well, personally in business, we're always learning and growing, and there's an acceptance of failure in
Yes.
business. Not all of my business ventures have been successful by any means, but you learn from the failures, whether they're micro failures or big failures. And that process of learning, picking up, trying, and doing again, maybe it's the competitive nature in me, but I thrive on that process. I like it. And that's what sort of triggered me to get into business. And then that spiraled for multiple different ventures in different industries from
Yeah.
there.
And so now, with the work-life balance, that's kind of tricky, isn't it? Especially
Yes.
with that entrepreneurship, and then you just really left your career on that, and now you're going into something else, and then you have your husband, you want to travel, and that
Yes.
work-life balance.
Yes.
That's kind of tricky. No, that's tricky.
Very tricky. And I learned that the hard way, and it's one of my missions and passions to pay forward, to help other people not have to go through the hard way and just learn how to do it from the beginning. There were periods along my journey where I did not have good balance at all. And in fact, I was, barely sleeping 5 hours a night. There was a point in time that had been years. One of my companies was a skincare company. We were launching globally, and we had a lot of press, we had investors, there was a lot going on, and I was practicing dermatology at the same time, and I was barely sleeping 4 or 5 hours. And I got to the point where I ended up, in my doctor's office, basically with her telling me at the age of 36 that I was on track to have a heart attack if I continued this. I mean, this had been already year 3, and this was not a healthy lifestyle, working like at this round the clock, what I thought kind of the hustle culture, and we've got this sexy brand with all of this press and this glamour around it, but the inside was not glamorous at all. It was terrible on our lifestyle. I had no time for family and for travel, and for the balance that we all seek and fulfillment. And so I learned after that point, I learned the hard way, how
Yes.
to balance time, how to prioritize, what to say no to, how to set boundaries. So now, I'm 15 years after that point in time,
Right.
and I can pay forward and help other people. So they don't go through those points that take a toll on their physical and mental health in the entrepreneurial journey, because there are definitely ways that you 100% can get the balance between your business venture and your personal life and the quality of life that you want to build.
Yeah, I know. I think right now, like society has just made it so that everything is fast paced, right? Like everything is fast paced. But I think you have to just kind of like breathe and take a step back on that one. But are there common signs that someone is like when they're so overwhelmed and feeling like they are spinning in circles sometimes not on a daily? Are there actual common signs that people just don't even think that that's a sign?
Yes, 100%. So I consider 3 big signs that you're in a season of overwhelm, spinning and cycling, and not making real progress. Basically, you're on a one-way path to burnout. And there's 3 big signs that I can recognize when I'm talking to somebody that I think, oh my goodness, they're in a cycle of overwhelm on a one-way path to burnout. And that is, number one, they're not making measurable progress. So they're doing all these things, they're juggling all the things, business, career, personal life, but there's not necessarily progress happening in every single area. In fact, there you can look at a point in time and look back 3 months, 6 months, or a year prior, and it's sort of the same. So that's one indicator that this is probably a one-way path to burnout and overwhelm. Number 2, the person verbally, starts recognizing, I can't sustain this. So sometimes I'll say to someone, is this the lifestyle that you can envision in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? And they say, heck no, there's no way I could keep this up. Well, then why do it for one more day is my question.
Okay.
Why not make the change today? So that's
Yeah.
the number 2 is it's
It's
not
number 2. Okay.
sustainable. Yep. And
Right.
number 3 is they don't have personal time. There's no personal time for thinking. There's no personal time for self-care. And one of my favorite anecdotal stories to share with people is if you're not putting the oxygen mask on yourself, you cannot help others. You cannot help your business, your colleagues, your
Yes.
family, your friends. And so if there is no time for you for self-care, and there's no time for you to think and innovate about what your goals really are, and are you making steps to get there, and to think differently, there's no time to think at all, then that's clue number 3 that you are in a
Okay.
season of overwhelm and on a path to burnout.
Now, would you take, because I talk about self-care a lot. I mean, I'm a I just truly believe in that. And it is true. If you don't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of others, right? So there's one thing that I have added onto, it seems that my daily and morning and even my nightly, those routines seem to be adding, but this is actually true add-on, is that I actually have started to practice gratitude.
Yeah.
And is that also part of what you see that actually helps with the anxiety and depression? Actually, it actually might help with depression, anger, and fear. Do you agree with that as well? That because I'm just starting, like
1000%.
it's a learning process for me. And so I just wanted to ask you about that, about how practicing gratitude can help.
Yep. Practicing gratitude can help with the things you're talking about: anxiety, fear, depression, confidence, imposter syndrome, all of those things. Those are the little gremlins inside of our mind that start to brainwash us that we are not able to do something, or something is going to hold us back. Some fictitious imaginary scenario that we make up in our mind is holding us back. And we're basically convincing ourselves we've put ourselves into fight or flight, and we're internally struggling in our brain. And now the fear has overtaken, and we think this is too hard. Forget it. I'm not going to do it. And the gratitude journaling is a really powerful tool to overcome all of those things, to overcome all those little gremlins so that you can start to train your brain to see the positive in your day, in your week, in your life, in your business. And you start to basically brainwash yourself. Hey, things are working. I can focus on the things that are working, not the things that are not working. And
Right.
if these things are working, imagine what else could work. But if I don't try, I'll never know.
No, that's true, right? You have to take that first step. It's always that first step in anything, right? But I think that's the fear, right? It's the fear of the unknown to take
Yes.
that first step because you're just like, I'm not sure. It's like dipping your toe in the water to see whether or not it's like, can I really dive into it? Or is it too hot? Is it too cold? Right? It's like one of those.
Yeah.
But is there like a way, like, is there like throughout a course of a day? Like, so I'm an entrepreneur. I'm like, a busy mom. And is there like a time blocking system that you might think that might help? Like, so balancing all of this and actually even incorporating some of this gratitude?
Yeah, for sure. Gratitude. I like gratitude at the beginning of the day. And
Okay,
really, honestly, if you can do it at the beginning of the day and end of the day, it's even better.
right.
Because then you're training your brain first thing when you wake up to recognize the positive and before you go to sleep at night again. So we're kind of sandwiching in the positives of what's going on in the world. And there's always something positive going on, even in the darkest times. There's always something, even if it's very small, that you can be grateful for in your day. And so you start to train your brain. It's really powerful. But time blocking is so powerful, and most people underestimate how it can really change your life. And so what time blocking is it's basically taking activities in your day and kind of clumping them together in a bucket. It's like, like you help so many people organize their homes, right? We've got
Right.
all these bins and buckets and places where we're organizing things, whether it's in the bathroom or the kitchen or whatever. In your day, it's the same concept. You're taking a section of time, it might be 1 hour, it might be 30 minutes, and you're clustering common tasks that fall under that category. So for example, you may have a time block for personal care. So this might be your workout, or it might be reading a book, or it might be, meditating. And what you want to do is set it at the same time every day. So every single
Okay.
day, whether you work
Same
out in the
day.
morning, yep, or you work out in the evening, it's
Okay.
time blocked, color coded on your calendar. That is self-care time. Then you have family time, right? So you've got family obligations. Maybe you've got kids and there's, recitals and there's activities. So you block those times. So those times are blocked in. Same with maybe family dinners or whatever's important to your family, right? Now we have other household tasks. So some of those tasks, might be cleaning or might be meal prep, things like that. You want to, as much as you possibly can, block those out. So if you can, for example, my sister, she has three little girls, under the age of 9. And
Oh
so they
gosh.
batch cook on Sunday evenings, and they,
Okay, yep.
spend a couple hours, and then
Yep.
all the meals are made for the entire week. And they don't
Oh my
spend
God.
time recooking. It's portioned out, and lunches and
Yep.
dinners pre-made, ready to go. And so that 2 hours,
Love
if
it.
you look at, if you were to meal prep every day, you'd be spending probably 2 hours a day. And so they've consolidated that to just 1 2 hour time block. So I start with personal first, then
Okay.
switch to business and look at your time blocks for your business. Now, if you're a business owner, you're going to have some time blocks around, business operations. You're going to have some time blocks around client meetings. You're going to have, and I would separate out internal meetings and external meetings, and you
Oh,
make those time blocks the same every
okay.
week. It's standing placeholder on your calendar. For example, my internal team meetings in my company are all on Mondays. So I
Okay.
don't do podcast interviews very rarely. This is an exception on Mondays. Usually this is always internal meeting time. And
Well,
it
I
usually,
thank you. I'm just gonna
yes, this is
say I'm
special.
honored. I'm honored for
This is
this. I'm
special.
honored.
Yes. And then, external meetings are other blocks, and you keep those
Okay.
blocks the same. You do not adjust them. If they don't fill
Okay.
for some reason, they become flex time. But you
Okay.
block out your time including thinking time and buffer time, and you block your time,
Okay.
and they don't really change a whole lot. You can move, you could trade sometimes, but your
Okay.
entire day, entire week is time blocked and it's consistent, so that you can predict it. When people want to schedule a meeting, you know exactly when you're available for meetings. Tuesday and Thursday mornings are your meeting times. And that's how you are efficient with your time block, instead of trying to juggle everything at once and fit everything in, and your brain shifting from one thing to another.
I think that's really, really important how you just just literally just, you said, these are dates and this is the time, this is the, and you also prioritize the tasks. Like
Yes.
that, you really did. And just on a side note, I just admire your sister because that's what I do on Sundays. I do meal planning for the week. I think it's just the easiest thing. It's a game changer in our household as well. So
Yes.
that's a digressive a note there. But I do really think that that is really important. And I think that that's probably one of the hardest challenges that a lot of people face is because they don't take this time blocking seriously. They might do it
Yes.
for a week and then fall through the funnel, so to speak, right? And it's
Yes.
more it's not, have you seen that also with your clients as well, that they start and then it kind of like goes down to the wayside?
Sometimes we'll start, or sometimes we'll make excuses in our own minds. The email
Oh,
inbox is a great example of how we make excuses. So I tell people to time block 30 minutes, 2 to max 3 times a day for your email inbox. That's it. Do not, and a lot of people make excuses, but I just need to get back to this person. But. No,
right.
if you're scheduling a time block in the morning and a time block in the afternoon, you can answer everybody who's important. Anything that, isn't critical for
Yes.
that day and might get responded to the next day, and that's okay. And so that's a common one that people will
Oh,
sneakily get in there. Same with social media. So email
yes.
inbox and social media are the two that will creep in. And people will tend to make excuses because sometimes social media is a mind escape, but a lot of time can go into that. So I recommend for people social media in the evenings, in your downtime, when your brain is mush and it's not your productive brain power time. It falls in the same category as watching a movie or something like that, where it's just sort of an escape. Do not give away your most productive hours where you have the most power to be creative and productive to things like social media, or even inbox quick answers and things like that. Really limit the time on those are the most common ones that will sneak in, creep back into the time blocking. Most people like time blocking personal care like workouts, and once they adjust for business time blocking, a lot of people like that too because it sets boundaries, and a lot of people are not confident in boundaries on their time. And once they time block, they feel sort of refreshed. They have this permission to say to somebody, oh, actually, I schedule meetings Tuesday and Thursday mornings instead of working around other people's calendars and things like that. Now,
Mm,
once in a while, do you make an exception? Of course, that happens all the time, but you
right.
have some parameters. You take some control of your time and you offer the times that work for you. And a lot of people feel refreshed when they have that because they don't feel as interrupted all the time. They have boundaries. And also, if you are ready for an assistant, it empowers your assistant to help
Yes.
control your schedule and your calendar.
Yes. It's actually, I've been talking more often now, also with my clients on setting boundaries.
Yes.
And and it's okay to do that. Like there should be, nobody should. And I think now, like the past couple of clients that I've been speaking to, because I'm actually working with them, because now, as we all know, we now have an office at home. Right. And so that's actually the hardest. So now you're a busy mom, you have your home office. And so how do you set those boundaries? Right.
Right.
And then having the family now acknowledge that you have boundaries because you have to, right? That's just the thing. Now, even if let's say you're a busy mom, let's say that you don't work, but you're still the CEO of the household, right? Like that's just the bottom line, right? We all are. And it's those boundaries, even though, I mean, and do you see that as well? Like it's really difficult for those to actually set a boundary and actually, how does someone go about doing that? Like if they're like saying, okay, I'm going to do a boundary and I'm going to do it like right now. I don't think so, right?
Yeah.
So just like,
It takes a process, and it takes a process to train the family, right? When we're working from home, it takes a minute to train the family around the boundaries because you've been available, you've been accessible, maybe you've been mom, and so you're there all the time.
right,
And so it takes a minute for the family to understand, hey, I'm working, whether it is closing the office door or whether there is some symbol that represents, this is my work time and uninterrupted time, unless there is a dire emergency,
right.
right? This is when I'm focusing here, but at this other time, I'm going to focus 100% on you. And I think telling the family when is their time is really critical. Like, if you finish your workday at 5 or 5:30 or 6 or whatever time, and then you do something special with your kids, or you have family dinner or whatever it might be, you repeatedly say, after 5 o'clock, we're going to go to the park. We're going to do these things. And you really emphasize that for the family rather than not being available. You tell them when you are available.
Okay, so that's a different way of think of the approach, right? Of saying when you are available and not when you're not available. So that's
Yes.
actually a really good key because a lot of people do the opposite,
Right.
right? And
Right. And
so
that can be also challenging with family members with the older, like parents and things like that. The older generation also they get a little confused about the work from home thing sometimes, especially if they live
yes,
in the local community or local neighborhood. And
right.
so with the older generation, the same thing applies. Letting, mom and dad know, hey, I'm available after 5. Come on over, let's have dinner together, let's do a family dinner, or, why don't you join us for Sally's dance recital, and letting your parents know when you are available too. Focus on that, because other times people, your loved ones, want your attention, and if you are telling the boundaries of when you're not available, they feel neglected or like their second choice. But if you tell them the time you have carved out for them, it changes their mental state, and they can look forward to that time, and they know the other time, not to bother you so much, but they can look forward to that time. Or maybe Sunday evenings are time with the parents and things like that.
Yeah, and you know what? It actually, if you now just listening to you, it actually makes it even sound like you're there and you're there's no obstacles, there's no boundaries, right? So there are boundaries, you've already set them, but you're giving them what is open. And
Yeah.
it's a softer way to say, listen,
Yeah.
this is what I have to offer you. And I think that
Yeah.
people would be then much more receptive,
Yes,
right? So
definitely.
that
Definitely.
right. And then you'll be
Mhm.
able to then have more of and then your days will be much more productive because you actually, in essence, you just literally not only have your boundaries, but you also have your time blocking. You've actually just did it all right then and there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, that's just all. And I think time management, time blocking, these are like are these new systems in place, or they're just now being much more fine tuned in the business world?
They've been in place, but they were a bit more defined by external forces when we're going to a 9 to 5, or we own a business where our employees are there. And I think, since the pandemic and so much work from home or hybrid work, that has really brought to light how
Right.
organizing time is critical to do even when you work from home.
Right.
Probably more important, honestly, because you've
Right.
got home responsibilities and work
Right.
responsibilities all in the
Right.
same location. And so I think this is just a reincarnation of, time, that the thought around time and how to organize it. Because when there was a delineation of a 9 to 5 job or 9 to 5 business, when you had your
Yeah.
employees, the structure sort of fell into place. But now there's a lot of gray zone, and I think that's where the emphasis has come around to, if we try and do it all at once, it doesn't work. And so the power of time blocking and time management is becoming more in the forefront now, because in order to
Yes.
be maximum efficient in the
Mhm.
workplace and at home, you really have to compartmentalize it.
So now are you a strong advocate for digital time blocking, like where you have everything like digitally? Because there's some like where some of my clients, they have not yet, they do some digital, like on the cell phone, of course, right? They kind of do that with their calendar, but then they
Yep.
also have like the paper aspect of the day planner. Are you a true believer of both of those or just focusing just on one outlet? Like, how does that work to get
You
it
could
really
do
down
it
pat?
both. Yeah, you could
Okay.
do both. I like Google Calendars because you can color code very easily. So you have, like, your workout, your personal care time, it might be purple. Your internal meeting times might be red.
Okay.
Your client blocking times might be green. And so right away when you open up your calendar, you can see the time blocks right away, recognize them. That would be a lot of time if you were to like color them all in a manual.
Right.
So I think you could do it still in a planner, but I
Right.
think, to color code it, make it visual, would be a little more challenging. And I also like it to be on the fly. So if,
Yeah.
we all have our phones with us at all times. And so pretty much no matter where you are, if an opportunity comes up right away, you can put it in your calendar on your phone. If you're doing on a planner, a manual planner that's written out, it might be at home or it might be in your office and you might be someplace else. And so then you have notes to yourself and becomes a second step. So I like a Google Calendar. It's free, it's easy. You just download the app on your phone. It integrates with all the phone calendars. And if you happen to be at a desktop or laptop, you can pull it up on a second monitor. I always have mine on a second monitor in addition to what I'm working on, and I can see
Right.
right there my meeting schedule.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, actually you just brought back like a flashback of a prior moment when I did have an actual day planner, right? And I had my cell phone. And
Yep.
here I am. It's we're in August. The school, the kids are going, we're doing the whole doctor's thing, we're doing all the appointments. And of course, what happened? I didn't transfer one of the appointments onto my other calendar. I lost sight of the other appointment. People are calling to confirm appointments. So, needless to say, that fell through work-wise as well, client schedule. So literally it got to a point where that one week, I guess there's always these moments in time that we have, right? As experiences, right? And you're just
Yes.
this was like such a teachable moment. Like, okay, Deanna, I need to solve this problem because I cannot have client calendar, a personal calendar, a kid's calendar. Like that's
Right.
way too much for me to actually like process. Like even in
Right.
your mind, if you really think about that, that's a
Yes.
lot of juggling.
Yes. Yes. And that's where I like multiple. And that's the other thing about Google Calendars. You can have multiple calendars. You could have your personal, your kids one. You can toggle it off and on. You could share that one with a significant other or spouse, like
Yes.
the family calendar.
Yes.
And then maybe
Yes.
your business calendar, you could share with an assistant. And so other people can help support you if you're digital. If you have a physical day planner, you are juggling everything yourself. And so, to your point, even more reason why I like, just a basic Google Calendar. Once you get to the point of mastering one, you can do multiple calendars, share with other
Right.
people, and
Right.
it makes your life so much easier.
The best part is that you can actually color code it. So, I'm all
And
about
color.
color coding, right?
Yes,
Right? I mean,
exactly.
that's right. That's just about how that's all she wrote, right? So now are there
Yeah.
any other for our listeners, or do you have any other methods in regards that that we can take away, like aside from the 3 steps that you went to, had spoken about earlier? Is there any other takeaways that we can do that we can implement like within the next week or so in our own homes and in our businesses?
I would 100% time diary right now. If you're not
Okay.
already time blocking, I would do
Okay.
a time diary before you time block. So I would write down, on an average Monday, what are all the things that you're doing and how much time, 15 minutes on this, 30 on this, an hour on that. And then I would time block for at least, or time diary for at least 1 week. And then you can start to see sort of those master categories. And I would probably choose, 5 to 6 master categories, not 20 of them. So you have these big chunks of time, and there's tasks that go inside that block of time. Until you diary, you won't be able to identify what those master block categories would be. So if you're not time blocking now, the first thing I would do is just diary what you're doing, just write down everything you're doing and how long it takes. At the end of a week, look and say like, okay, how many of these things are personal care, are family related, first there, how much are work related, and then within those categories, break up like 3 or 4 different master blocks within each area. And then next step, look at your calendar and say, how do I make this a standing time on the same time every day of the week? Or maybe it's only one day of the week for 2 hours. You start to think about which of these things happen daily, which happen once a week, and you start consolidating. So that would be my first step. And then the pitfalls, the top 3 pitfalls when you're time blocking, most people don't put enough buffer time in between the time blocks. They
Oh.
underestimate that you might to use the restroom
Oh,
once in a
that's right.
while,
That's
or
right. The buffers. Well,
yes,
we forget about them. We do. We
we
really forget
forget
about
about the
them. We
buffers.
forget about the
People,
buffers.
yes, people forget they have to use the restroom. They forget they might get a phone call. They forget that something, there might be an email that takes a little longer, or something, a team member, somebody might call and disrupt the schedule. So I
Okay.
recommend typically anywhere from a 15 to 30-minute buffer between the time blocks so that you can catch up on a couple other loose ends, or if you go a little bit over in that time block, it's not going to derail the rest of the day. So that's number one
Okay.
mistake, is most people do not schedule enough buffer time. The second is most people do not schedule enough thinking or innovation time. They don't schedule enough downtime, essentially. So they
Okay.
book themselves so solid, even though there's buffers in between, every single moment is high productivity. And that's just not totally realistic for the human brain and the human body. And so at some point during the week, or potentially even during the day, there's got to be some time for just some thinking, some reflecting, like, okay, is this working? What do I want to do different? I really need to think about this one project in a different way. Where is that time going to be? If all of your time is scheduled to be producing something, that's a
Yeah.
common mistake that most people make. So I usually tell people,
Okay.
make sure that your time on each day is divided between things that are more thinking and innovative and things that are more productivity related, so that you allow yourself some time to innovate and think differently. Um, and the last big mistake that people make is they don't measure the outcome of that time. So they will create their time blocks. And then a month from now, they'll say, well, things aren't really better with, my business, or things aren't really better with my marriage, or things aren't really better with my relationship with my kids. So they've time blocked out how they're going to spend their time, but it's
Right?
not in a way that actually improves the situation. So the time isn't actually being
Oh,
used in a way that moves things
against.
forward.
Okay.
So those are the three biggest mistakes that people make. Number one, not enough buffer. Number two, not enough thinking and downtime mixed in with productivity time. And number three, not setting goals that you can measure improvement in the areas where you are scheduling the time. Because the goal is not just to organize the time so that you know what you're doing. The goal is that you're seeing improvement in all areas of your life. Your business is getting better, your relationships are getting better, your family dynamics are getting better, your health is getting better. So every single area of those buckets of time blocks, you want to have goals that you're working towards and you can measure the progress. Because if you're not measuring them, you're spending the time, it's more organized, but you're not going to get a different result in the end.
And actually, you know what, and so for like myself, I know that it's not an overnight, like it's not like overnight, like you had just said, like a month.
Yeah.
For me, and correct me if I'm wrong, this actually takes a while, right? To actually fine tune it.
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
right? It's not like an
Yes.
overnight, like you had actually even mentioned a month. So it actually can go
Yes.
longer. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. You're going to set your time blocks and then you're going to reassess, like, oh, I'm not scheduling enough time for my email box, or I'm not setting enough
Okay.
time, enough buffer time, or I don't have enough, family time. I need to figure that out. And so you're at the beginning, you're going to be moving things and adjusting things. And I revisit my time blocks typically quarterly, at least based on
Oh,
my
okay.
goals, because
Okay.
I may be in a season of my life where I want to focus on my health. Maybe I want to lose some weight for the summer, so I'm going to get in some more trainer sessions. Where's that time going to come from? So I need to beg, borrow, and steal time from other time blocks. So there may be a 3-month period where I've got more emphasis on health and I'm carving out a little bit of time from other areas. 3 months after that, once I reach that goal for health, I may put that more on a maintenance plan, and I may double down and use some more time blocks on my team with my business. I may be focusing more on sales or marketing. If I'm launching something new, I'm putting all my energy there. So I'm always looking at the season of what's going on in my business and my life. And I'm very intentional about where the energy and the time is going in each area. What do I want to grow the most? What's in sort of maintenance phase? And vice versa. And I'm always sort of adjusting the time blocks based on the goals that I want to achieve for that period of time, whether it's a month, a quarter, or a year.
Right, okay. So I like the fact that you actually mentioned maintenance. So this is really like, this is an ongoing. It's not like you set this up, you look at it, you tweak it. It's somewhat flexible, but it's somewhat not. But I like that it's maintenance, because it's true, because things happen, right?
Yes.
That you might not know. And then you're caught in between, whether it's, the busy mom, the business owner, the entrepreneur, right? It's that. So I like how you mentioned that. It actually puts everything now into a nice like layout of what can be done with that maintenance. It's not,
Yes.
because if you have that maintenance, it's just like we always have maintenance, right? But now you
Exactly.
just actually lay that out. So that's actually pretty good. That actually is really good. And so do you have any personal stories that you could share, if possible, that the maintenance actually did work for you and that you didn't even think that it would work? Because a lot of times you hear that, that this has been in place, right? And this
Mhm.
is what you've done. But is there something that a relatable story that you might like to share with us?
Around being consistent with the
Yes,
time
and
blocking.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, with
I
time
think,
blocking, yes.
for sure. I mean, if I think back to the point in time when I was sleeping 5 hours a night. I felt like I was doing all the things at once. This sense of overwhelm, it almost was like I couldn't breathe during the day. I was super productive, and things were moving forward. So there was progress happening. You could measure progress, but the emotional state and the physical state was so unpleasant at the time, and looking back at it, I realized how unpleasant it really was. When I was in it, it seemed relatively unpleasant. Now thinking back on it, I think, oh my gosh, how did I do that for so long? Like, why did I
Right.
do that for
Why
so
did you
long?
do it for so long? Right.
Why did I do that for so long? And so I think that that is the biggest change and pivot for me now, is that, probably the past 3 years, I've really focused a lot on the time and energy and focus going into the areas that I want to improve, and
Okay.
accepting within myself that if I don't put energy and effort into those areas, they're probably not going to improve. They're probably not going to
Well,
change. And I think the fact that now I have two coaching and consulting businesses. My personal brand is my newest, which is my
oh,
CaseyD'Amato.com. The coaching that I do with
yes.
entrepreneurs, like you were explaining at the beginning of our
Yes.
session there, chat here, that is my newest venture. And things that were challenging for me about building a personal brand, which is a lot of social media, a lot of speaking, and
Yeah.
these felt, I was a little uncomfortable about all of that. But then once I started time blocking, okay, this is when I'm going to post on social media. This is when I'm
Yeah.
going to share my story. This is when I'm going to reach out to collaborative podcasts and people that I want to, that I respect and admire and who I want to collaborate with. This is when and how I'm going to reach out, and how many people I want to talk to. That has really exploded my trajectory in from a business standpoint. So I took
Yeah.
something that I was avoiding, which was, getting on social media a lot or
Right.
speaking a lot, things like that. And I put it right front and center and said, if this is something that I feel passionate about, paying forward my
Yeah.
experience and helping other people, then the only way to do that is to talk to people online, offline, and all the things. And so I started time blocking when I was going to speak, how many people I was going to reach out to for speaking, when I was going to post, how many times. And it's all on the calendar, scheduled, and fast forward, my personal brand's only a year old, and it's growing very quickly. I already
Yes.
have a wait list, and and launching a whole new
Congratu-
program.
Yes.
So
Congratulations on that one.
that's, yeah, thank you. Thank you. So that's an example of like taking the things that you don't want to do or maybe you're avoiding, and making them a priority on your time blocking schedule.
Yeah.
And all of a
True.
sudden you see progress and things changing faster than you realized.
Yes, and I'm glad that you did share that, because I can actually relate. So the same thing with me and my business as well, right? It's that time blocking, and it's so important. A lot of people just don't might not like the words time blocking. Maybe they just think that it's like, you think about that and you're like, you're forcing yourself to sit down somewhere, right? And then set that alarm for whatever time, because you actually are right, like you're stuck. And so I'm taking it on for me personally. I'm actually achieving a goal. Like my goal is to time block, because I need to produce something. I need to have an outcome in order for that to come. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Right. I mean,
Right.
it's just not, it's not going to happen. I don't have fairy dust that I can sprinkle around to
We
make
will
things
all
happen.
procrastinate.
I mean,
We'll
like
all procrastinate.
I mean, like totally procrastinating, right? So, but do you see that as well? Like those words, time blocking, actually, no pun intended, actually blocks people from doing that. Do you see
Yes.
that?
Yes. And I think that when that happens, people think that time blocking is going to be like a handcuff, like you have to do this
Right.
on this day,
Okay.
this time.
Yeah.
And the way that I work around that is, don't think about the time blocking for that specific task. Think about the time blocking in a big category. And if there's a task in that category that you don't feel like doing that day, don't do
Right.
it. Do it the next time. So what a lot of mistake that a lot of people will make is they'll try to break it down into like 15 minutes in each individual task. This is not, time blocking
That's
is
a big one.
not your to-do list. It is not your to-do list. So don't think of it that way. Time
Right.
blocking is taking the big category. So in my example, so it was maybe posting on social media. So maybe
Okay.
I might have 30 minutes a day to post on social media and engage. It's something that, doesn't always, I'm not always in the mood for it. I'm not a social
Right.
media junkie by any means, So there are sometimes I might not feel like posting a video where I'm talking to camera. So then I won't do that. Then I will just, find a picture or something like that and share a story. And so even though that time block is there, you don't necessarily have to do every single thing on your to-do list. Time blocking and to-do lists
Oh,
are not the same. Time
okay.
blocking means
So,
you're doing
so yeah, so
something in
let's,
that
yeah, let's
category.
clarify that for our listeners. Can you repeat that one more time?
Yes.
Because I think that
Yes.
that might be like that blending. So can you repeat that one
Yes.
more time?
Yes. Time blocking and to-do lists are not the same at
Right.
all. Time
Mhm.
blocking is a category, a bucket, if you will, that has a master category, a master bucket that if you put some energy into some activities in this bucket, you will make progress in this area. Now, you may have a big laundry list of to-dos within this bucket, and you might only feel like doing two of the things on the to-do list.
Right.
Fine, great, that's a win. This is time blocking is not executing your entire to-do list. It is how you are organizing your time. Your action items and your to-dos may fall under that in that
Yes.
bucket, but you're not going to get to all of them. You're just going to do the ones that are most important and you feel like doing that are
Right.
aligned with what you want to do that day or that week. So it is
Right.
not about every 15 minutes and it's not about completing everything on the to-do list. It is not that. It's if you can do two things in that master category of action items and you just pick two, great. It's a
Right.
win.
Well, because then you feel good about it. Like you just said, it's a win. Right.
Yes.
But I mean, like how you just said that every 15 minutes, I just listening to you on that, like literally, I would feel like so not accomplished. Like
Yes. Yes.
I would just basically, I would just like look at that to-do list and be like, yeah, I got nothing accomplished. And then I feel bad about myself. And then the emotions of self-esteem come into play that I had and not a productive day at all.
Yes. And the way I think about it is you can take those time blocks and when I'm brainstorming, I might be out and about or doing something with my family and I'm thinking like, "Oh, I just got this great idea that I should share with the marketing team." I will then add it to just a brainstorm. I call it a brainstorm list, not a to-do list, a
Okay.
brainstorm list for my marketing time block that I meet with my team once a month.
There you go.
Once that time block happens, I'll look back at all the things that have popped in my mind and I'll pick the most important or the most relevant, and other ones will wait until later. But
Yes.
this allows me, when I have different thoughts during the day,
Mhm.
I can then go and put them on my brainstorm list for that time block. When I get to the time block, I look at that list and I go, okay, which things do I want to tackle will make the most impact? It's not going to be everything. I'm just going to cherry pick the most important. Other ones will
Okay.
stay there and I'm going to keep adding to my brainstorm list. And I think that helps people not feel so handcuffed by
Right.
the time blocking.
Time
It is
blocking,
not
the
a
word
to-do
time.
list.
No.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. No, but I have to say, I want to thank you for actually sharing the fact, because I actually do the same thing on my phone. When I think of something, I have to like do it right then and there because I might forget. Sad to say, but
Yes.
that is true. I do forget. And actually at night, so I actually have, I know this is going to sound really crazy, but on my nightstand, I actually have like a little pad and paper. Because if I wake up in the middle of the night, I don't want to I don't want to go on my phone. So I'll just like scribble what my thought is. And
Yes.
then whatever it is, I just write it down right then and there because who knows what's going to happen the next morning, right? And then I'm like, I know I thought of something, then maybe I didn't. So, right? Have you had
Yes.
that too in the middle of the night where you write things
Yes.
down real quick?
Definitely before I go to sleep, right before I'm
Okay.
falling asleep, I always have all these ideas and I'm like, so write them down or email them to myself.
Right? Okay. All right. Well, actually, that's a good one. You can email them to yourself.
I
Okay.
do
I
that
can
all the
add.
time.
Do you
Yes.
really? Okay. All right. You know what? I'm gonna have to start. I'm gonna take you up on that note. That's gonna be a new thing for me is to actually email myself. I
Yes.
have not yet done that one. So I thank you for that one. So,
Yes.
so,
Yes.
so for our listeners, how can they get a hold of you? And if they have any additional questions on all of
Yeah.
this.
Yes, definitely. So I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Kasey D'Amato. So you can find me on
Okay.
all three of those, and you can always send me a DM that way. My website is kaseydamato.com, and you can email through that channel as well. All my contact information is there.
Super.
And I would be welcome to talk to anybody. I do offer free strategy sessions. If anybody wants to apply for a free strategy session, we sit down, we talk about what's going on in your life, your business, and my primary goal is to help people accelerate both their business and their life and take them to the next level without the overwhelm, and to kind of reorganize and reposition the way you're operating to level up things so that you're improving quality of life. So whether that is more money, more time, more fun, hopefully all three of those things.
I was going to say, hopefully all three. Right?
Yes,
Hopefully all three.
three.
Well, Kasey, this has been actually such a joy, such a true inspiration. And thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today. And
Thanks for
also
having me,
for our
Diane.
listeners, I'm going to all the show notes. In the show notes. I'll list all of the ways that you can actually contact Kasey as well.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe to Organizing with Ease podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more listeners like you who are passionate about living their best lives. And remember, a new episode comes out every Thursday at 8 a.m. So mark your calendar and join us. Until next week, take care and keep shining bright.